Did you know that 90% of successful negotiators don't rely on big speeches or fancy tactics? Instead, they use small, simple habits that anyone can adopt. It's true. In fact, just by adjusting the way you speak, listen, or even staying silent for a few seconds, you could change the outcome of your next negotiation, without even realizing it. Here's a shocking stat. Studies show that negotiators who make the first offer are 30% more likely to succeed. And guess what? Most people don't even know how powerful this simple move is. In this video, we're diving into the tiny habits that can deliver huge results in any negotiation. From mastering the art of silence to using reverse psychology, you'll learn strategies that take minutes to implement but can change everything. Ready to become a negotiation pro? Let's dive in. Chapter 1. The power of one word. Imagine this. You're at the negotiation table, and your counterpart says, "We can't accept that price." You could respond with a long-winded defense, or you could try something simpler. One word. Why? It's a powerful tiny habit that instantly shifts the dynamics of the conversation. According to negotiation expert Chris Voss, asking, "Why?" can encourage the other party to explain their reasoning, giving you vital information you might otherwise miss. This simple question opens up room for dialogue, turning a closed-off negotiation into an opportunity for deeper exploration. The word, why, shows curiosity and a willingness to understand, which is more likely to create rapport than pushing your point. In fact, studies show that people are more likely to collaborate when they feel understood. But it doesn't stop at just one word. It's about using it consistently. The habit of asking, why, builds trust, giving you an insight into the other person's values, interests, and motivations. That tiny shift in behavior is a huge game changer. On the flip side, a word like, but can often derail negotiations. Research by Dr. Jennifer E.M. Sargent shows that phrases starting with, but can create resistance and defensiveness. Instead of starting with, but, try saying, and. It's a tiny habit, but it keeps the conversation collaborative and less adversarial. For example, instead of, "I understand your concerns, but here's my offer," try, "I understand your concerns, and here's what I can offer." Small change, big impact. Chapter 2. Mirroring magic. The tiny habit of mirroring, repeating key words or phrases from the other person, can be incredibly powerful. It's an instinctive, subconscious action that signals empathy and builds rapport. In fact, a study published in Psychological Science showed that mirroring someone's speech patterns or body language can make them more likely to agree with you. When people feel that they're being understood, they're more likely to open up. Here's a simple way to implement it. If the other person says, "I need more flexibility on the price," mirror that back by saying, "You're looking for more flexibility." This makes them feel heard and invites them to elaborate further, giving you more insight into their position. It's not just about repeating words, it's about letting them know you're paying attention. Incorporating this habit into your daily negotiations doesn't take much. Just remember, don't overdo it. If you repeat every word, it can feel fake. Instead, focus on reflecting back key points, emotions, or concerns. This tiny gesture helps to calm the atmosphere and encourage open dialogue. Mirroring can even be more subtle. By subtly mimicking their body language or tone of voice, you're strengthening the connection between you two without saying a word. Dr. Robert Cialdini, author of Influence, highlights how these unconscious signals can increase the chances of a favorable outcome. It's a small habit that can make the difference between a deal that falls through and one that's solidified. Chapter 3. The 5-minute rule. Preparation is key in any negotiation, but the idea of spending hours mapping out every single detail can feel overwhelming. The solution? The 5-minute rule. This tiny habit involves spending just 5 minutes before any negotiation to mentally prep. What do you want from the conversation? What's your bottom line? What are the key points you can compromise on? Just 5 minutes can help you organize your thoughts, boost confidence, and set clear goals. Research shows that quick mental prep can dramatically improve outcomes. A study by Dr. Carol Dweck, author of Mindset, reveals that individuals who took time to prepare, however briefly, we're more likely to reach a mutually beneficial agreement. The goal is not to overthink or obsess over every detail but to create a mental framework for how you want the negotiation to unfold. By committing to 5 minutes of prep, you'll enter the conversation with a clearer sense of purpose and direction. This tiny habit allows you to stay calm, even when things get tense. This technique also prevents you from rushing into negotiations without a plan. Too often, people jump into conversations unprepared, leading to missed opportunities and poor outcomes. With just 5 minutes, you ensure that you're in control, ready to steer the conversation where you want it to go. It's also about focus. The short prep time forces you to distill the most important issues, keeping you from getting lost in the weeds. Studies show that focused decision-making, even for a short time, is far more effective than wandering into a negotiation without a clear strategy. By making this small change, you transform how you approach negotiations. It's not about spending hours, it's about being strategic and intentional in a short amount of time. The 5-minute rule is a tiny habit that can produce massive results, putting you in the driver's seat every time. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more negotiation tips that will make a difference in your next deal. Chapter 4. Silence is golden. It might seem counterintuitive, but sometimes saying nothing is the best thing you can do in a negotiation. The power of silence is one of the most overlooked tools in the negotiation toolkit. When you stop talking, you create space for the other party to reveal more. According to Chris Voss, a former FBI negotiator, silence is often more powerful than words. People tend to fill silence with information, sometimes even information they hadn't planned to share. Psychological studies confirm this. The Journal of Applied Psychology found that when negotiators use silence, the counterpart often becomes uncomfortable and feels the need to speak. This gives you the chance to gather more details or see where their boundaries lie. Silence makes the other person think, what are they thinking? That hesitation works in your favor. Using silence doesn't mean being awkward. It's about creating strategic pauses after your request or question. After making your offer or statement, give the other person time to process and respond. Don't rush to fill the gap. According to the Harvard Negotiation Project, the pause can often signal authority and confidence. Another key benefit of silence is that it forces the other person to consider their position more carefully. A study by the Journal of Behavioral Decision-Making found that people are more likely to make concessions after a period of silence. When people talk too much, they often reveal weaknesses. Silence helps you avoid that pitfall, making you seem more composed and in control. So, how do you master this tiny habit? Start small. Practice pausing for just a few seconds after making a point. Let the other party process what you've said. Over time, you'll find that you're more comfortable with silence and that it gives you a clear edge in negotiations. Chapter 5. The reverse psychology hack. Reverse psychology isn't just for playgrounds or tricky kids. It's a powerful tool in adult negotiations as well. At its core, reverse psychology involves convincing someone to do something by suggesting they do the opposite. This tiny habit can be a brilliant way to create a situation where the other party works in your favor without even realizing it. For example, imagine you're negotiating a deal, and the other person is hesitant to commit. Instead of pushing harder, you might suggest that the deal may not be the best fit for them. The key is to subtly plant the idea that they might be better off walking away. Often, this leads the other party to reconsider, making them more eager to settle. Research supports this strategy. A study published in Psychological Science found that when people are told they can't do something, their desire to do it increases. This forbidden fruit effect is a great way to get people to change their position. By subtly suggesting that walking away might be in their best interest, you trigger a reaction that pushes them toward agreeing with you. This technique also works because it taps into human nature. People don't like to feel controlled. When they think they're making the decision themselves, they're more likely to feel confident about it. So, offering them an option they hadn't considered, such as walking away, makes them feel like they are exercising their free will, leading to better results for you. The key to using reverse psychology effectively is to remain calm and casual. The tactic only works when it's used subtly and not as a blatant manipulation. It's a tiny habit that requires just a shift in your mindset. Instead of pushing your agenda aggressively, position yourself as a neutral party offering another perspective. The results can be huge. Chapter 6. The anchoring effect. Ever heard the saying, first offers set the tone? That's the anchoring effect in action. This tiny habit can drastically shift the outcome of your negotiations, especially when you set the first number on the table. Anchoring is a psychological phenomenon where people rely too heavily on the first piece of information they receive, the anchor, when making decisions. Studies show that the first offer in a negotiation has an outsized impact on the final deal. In fact, a study published in the Journal of Economic Psychology found that negotiators who made the first offer were 30% more likely to come out ahead than those who waited. The first number you put out there becomes the reference point for all subsequent offers. Let's say you're negotiating the price of a service. If you start with a higher number than what you're hoping to settle on, the final agreement is more likely to fall closer to that higher number, even if the other person doesn't immediately agree. This is because their perception of value is anchored to your initial offer. To master this tiny habit, it's important to come prepared with your ideal first offer. Do the research and set a number that's slightly higher than your actual target. The initial number may seem arbitrary to the other party, but in reality, it shapes their entire view of the negotiation. It's all about setting the stage before they have a chance to influence the direction. Anchoring isn't limited to just price. It can apply to timelines, product features, or any other aspect of a deal. The first mention of anything sets expectations. The power lies in using that first reference to nudge the conversation in your favor, even when the actual numbers or terms are still up for discussion. By incorporating this simple habit into your approach, you'll give yourself a significant advantage from the outset. The best part? It's effortless. You don't need to do anything drastic, just make the first offer and watch the negotiation unfold in your favor. These tiny habits, using one powerful word, mirroring, preparing in just 5 minutes, embracing silence, reverse psychology, and anchoring, can give you a huge edge in your negotiations. Practice them, and you'll see the results. Don't forget to subscribe for more tips and strategies that will transform how you negotiate.